Hello and welcome. My name is Zaid. I'm an ethical hacker, a computer scientist, and I'll be your instructor for this course. In this course, you'll learn network penetration testing from scratch. So you'll learn both wired and wireless network penetration testing, and by the end of it, you'll be at a high intermediate level, being able to launch attacks exactly like black hat hackers would do. Not only that, but you'll also be able to secure your networks from these attacks. The first thing we're going to learn is how to set up your lab so that you can practice penetration testing safely in your own environment. Once done with that, we're going to move in and learn how networks work, how devices connect to a network, and how they interact with each other. Once we understand how these things work, we'll move into our three main penetration testing sections. The first section is pre-connection attacks. So in this section, you'll learn all the attacks that you can do before you connect to the network. So it's going to be mostly geared towards wireless networks at the start, because if you want to connect to a wired network, you can literally just connect using the wire, and then you'll be able to move to section 3 where you can run more sophisticated attacks. So in the first section, you'll learn how to control all the connections around you so you can disconnect any device from any network without having to connect to that network. You'll also learn how to set up a fake access point and lure people into connecting to it, and then you'll be able to capture all the data sent or received by any of the people connected to your fake wireless network. So you'll be able to see the usernames, the passwords, anything that they do really. Once done with that, we're going to move into the second section, which is gaining access. So again, if your target is a wired network, you can use the wire, connect to it. Some networks use filtering, so we'll see how you can bypass the filtering by changing the MAC address. If the target is a wireless network, the process is much more complicated. Most wireless networks these days, they use encryption and they use passwords. So you learn a number of attacks to get the passwords for any network, whether it uses WIP, WPA, or WPA2 encryption. Once done with that and we have access to our target network, we're going to move into section 3, the post-connection attacks. This section is going to be the most fun, and you're going to learn attacks that you can run against both wired and wireless networks, and it's going to work against any type of device, whether it's a laptop running Windows, Linux, Mac OS, or a TV, a phone, an Android phone, an iOS phone, any computer at all, any device that is connected to a network, these attacks will work against. These attacks will allow you to capture anything sent or received by any of the devices in your network. So you'll be able to capture usernames, passwords, cookies, websites visit. You'll be able to get screenshots of any device in your network. You'll be able to inject keyloggers, and at the end of it, you'll even be able to gain full control over any device that is in your network. Once we're done with all of these sections, I'm going to teach you how to detect and secure your networks from the attacks explained. Now, the course is highly practical, but it doesn't neglect the theory part. So you're going to learn how each of these attacks work, why do these attacks work, and then we're going to launch the attack against real devices in my environment. So these aren't proofs of concepts or anything theory. These are practical attacks that work against all devices.
As I mentioned, this course is going to be highly practical. Therefore, you will need a lab, a place where you can practice and experiment with the things that you're going to learn in the course. Not only that, but having a lab is essential for hackers or pen testers, because let's say you discovered a new attack, or you want to experiment with a new attack, or you learned something new online and you want to test it, then the perfect place for you to test this and practice hacking is a hacking or a testing lab. Now, to create a lab, you just need a number of computers with different operating systems, and you'll need a number of networks if you're testing network attacks, and if you're testing website attacks, then you will need to install websites on these computers. Or you can do all of this inside your computer, inside one machine, and install everything else as virtual machines. And this is what we're going to do. So let's say you have your computer right here. This is your main computer that you use every day to check your emails or even to watch this course. This computer might be running Windows, OS X or Linux. It doesn't really matter. It can run any operating system. You can keep all the programs that you love and like and install a virtualization software such as VirtualBox or VMware. A virtualization software allows us to create a number of virtual computers inside your main computer. So we can have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 computers all installed inside your main operating system, inside your main computer. The really cool thing about this is you will not need a number of computers. You can do everything inside a single computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a hacking machine. This is going to be the machine that we will use in order to hack into other machines. We're going to install Kali Linux on it, and we'll talk about what that is later on. And we're going to have 2 target machines. These are machines that we're going to try to hack into and practice hacking against. One of them is going to be running Windows, and the other one is going to be running an operating system called Metasploitable, and we will talk about that once we get to it. Now, it is very important to understand that you will not lose any functionality when you install an operating system as a virtual machine. You can use that machine exactly as if it's a real physical machine. So the really cool thing about using virtual machines, first of all, you're not going to lose any functionality. Second, all the machines are going to be isolated. So as we go through the course, we're going to be trying to hack into these machines, and we might actually break one of them. But that's fine. It will not affect your host machine. You will be able to easily fix this and go back to a snapshot of when the machine was working without affecting your main computer. The other cool thing is that you'll be able to have a number of different versions of each of these machines, and you'll be able to change the configuration easily, change the network settings, or switch between different states of these machines, and so on. So, by using virtualization, you will not lose any functionality, but you will gain so many cool features. And the main thing to keep in mind is your host machine, your main computer, will never be affected. It's completely isolated. And if we break any of these machines, nothing will happen to your precious computer that you use every day. And this way, you can always use your host machine for daily use, for checking emails, watching the videos, doing whatever you do normally, and then use your virtual machines for hacking and practicing the attacks. And this is what we're going to be doing in this course. So right here, I have a Windows computer that does not contain any hacking tools, so I can't really use it for hacking. But I have a virtualization software called VMware installed on it, and this software allows me to run multiple operating systems as virtual machines within this host computer. So I can use the host computer for my daily use and then use the virtual machines for whatever use I want, for testing or for hacking. So if I zoom in here on the left, you can see that I have Kali Linux installed. This is an operating system that we will use for hacking. You can see I have another Windows computer. You can see that I have Linux, all of it installed as virtual machines. And then we're going to be using these as we go through the course for hacking or for testing without affecting our main host operating system, this Windows computer. Now, don't worry about any of this. In the next lectures, I will show you in details how to install this virtualization software, VMware, on all of the major operating systems, on Windows, Linux, or Apple Mac OS. As we go through the course, I will also show you in details how to install these operating systems as virtual machines within VMware. The first operating system that we're going to install in our lab is Kali Linux. See, throughout the course, we're going to use a number of hacking tools. You can install each of these tools manually, or you can do what most hackers do, including myself, and save time and effort and use an operating system designed for hacking. We're going to use an operating system called Kali Linux. It's a Linux distro based on Debian, and the only difference between Kali and the actual original Debian Linux distro is the fact that Kali has a lot of hacking and penetration testing tools pre-installed and pre-configured in it. Therefore, once you install Kali, you will have access to so many hacking tools without the need to install or configure any of them, which will save you a lot of time and a lot of effort. Now, just like any other operating system, you can install it as a main machine or as a virtual machine. Now, I'm going to install it as a virtual machine because, like I explained in the previous lecture, we will not lose any functionality by using operating systems as virtual machines, and it comes with a lot of benefits because it's completely isolated from our computer that we always use. So if we break the virtual machine or if we want to delete it and reset it, it will not affect our main operating system. Now, the first thing that you want to do is download the virtual image of Kali Linux. So you can download it from the resources of this lecture. To access the resources of the current lecture, we're going to scroll down to the lecture. We're going to click on the resources icon, and then we're going to click on the resource that we want. Now, before going ahead with this, I want to highlight something that is very, very, very important. So please pay attention. This is a custom Kali image that I made for my courses. It is smoother and faster than the original one. It fixes a number of bugs, and it contains a number of extra programs that we need for this course and are not included in the original release. You do not have to use this custom image. You can use the original one. You can even use just a normal Linux distribution, as long as you know how to manually install all of the missing programs and apply the fixes that I did myself. And you can see a full list of them here on the left. Therefore, if you ask us a question in the Q&A section and you're not using the custom image, the first thing that we will ask you is to use the custom Kali image that we made for you, because we know the original one is broken and we will not know the changes you made in order to fix it. So, if you have a 64-bit computer, download it from one of these links. Or if you have a 32-bit computer, then download the 32-bits version from here. While waiting on the download, check out our VIP community right here and our YouTube channel. We actually post hacking content on it regularly, so you'll probably find this very, very useful. So make sure you subscribe to stay updated with the latest stuff that we post in here. Once the download is complete, you'll be ready to install Kali as a virtual machine. I will walk you through that in the next lectures, but before moving on, we need to enable virtualization to run virtual machines. You only need to do that if you're running Windows or Linux. You do not need to do this if you're running Apple Mac OS, as Apple computers come with virtualization enabled by default. So skip the rest of this lecture if you're using an Apple computer. If you're using Windows or Linux, then continue with me to see how to enable it. So on Windows, before enabling it, if you want to check if it is already enabled, you're going to have to go to the Start menu. We're going to look for the Task Manager. I have it right here. I'm going to click on More Details. I'm going to go on Performance. And if you look in here, beside virtualization, you can see in my case, it's saying disabled. So we're going to have to enable it. But if it's saying enabled for you, then you can skip the rest of this lecture and move on to the next lecture. If it's saying disabled, then continue with this lecture to learn how to enable virtualization. So to do that, we're gonna have to first restart the computer, and as it's booting, as it's starting, you're gonna have to press a key combination, usually one of the F keys from your keyboard, to enter the BIOS settings, and from there we can enable it. So let me show you how to do it. Keep in mind, you only need to do this if virtualization is disabled. If it's enabled, then you can simply skip this and continue with the rest of the course. Entering the BIOS settings varies depending on the computer that you have and depending on the motherboard. On the right here, I have a table of the most common computers, along with the buttons that you need to press in order to enter the BIOS settings. So as soon as you turn on the computer or restart it, you'll need to press the button relevant to your computer in here in order to enter the BIOS settings. Once you're there, you want to make sure you enable virtualization. So let me show you how to do this on a real computer. This is a Lenovo computer. Therefore, based on the table that I just showed you, I will need to press F2 as soon as I turn on this computer in order to enter into its BIOS settings. So first, I'm gonna hit the power button to turn it on, and as it's being turned on, I'm gonna keep pressing F2 to enter the settings. And perfect, as you can see, I am in the BIOS settings right now. Now keep in mind, depending on your computer, the settings might look different than what I have in here. The main thing you need to keep in mind is to enable virtualization. This option can be found in a different window in any of these windows or tabs, but the main thing you want to keep in mind is to look for an option called virtualization, VTX, AMDV, or any of the options in here and enable it. So as you can see, for me, the first window that I see is just an information window. It doesn't really allow me to modify anything. Now you can use the keyboard to navigate between these windows or these tabs. So I'm gonna press the right arrow to go to the configuration window. And in here, the only thing that I wanna modify is Intel virtualization technology. So I'm gonna use the down arrow to navigate to that. And I'm gonna hit enter to change the setting, press down to set it to enabled, and hit enter again to select it. Now, if you're not sure about how to use this interface, because like I said, you might actually get a different interface, keep an eye on the instructions that you see at the bottom as they tell you exactly how to navigate and modify the settings. Now, I'm done with the configuration window. I'm gonna press the right arrow again to go into the security tab. We're gonna go to the exit. So again, I'm gonna press the right arrow again, and I'm gonna select the first option, exit saving settings. It's gonna ask me, do I really wanna do this? I'm gonna say yes. The computer will restart with virtualization enabled. So in the next lectures, when we get to installing virtual machines, these virtual machines will run with no issues. If you've done everything properly, now if you go again to the task manager, go to performance, you should see that virtualization is enabled. If you couldn't do that, please ask us in the Q&A section and we'll be happy to help you. Keep in mind that you only need to do this if you're running Windows or Linux as the host computer on your main computer. If you're running Apple, Mac OS, then you do not need to do this and you should have skipped this part. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine inside Windows. Skip this lecture if you're running Apple, Mac OS or Linux, as I will cover that in the next lectures. Now, I already have it downloaded in here, and as you can see, the file has a .7z extension. This is an archive that contains the actual virtual image of Kali.
And right now, because we installed 7-zip, this program, we're going to be able to uncompress this archive and see the contents inside it and see the virtual image inside it. So I'm going to right click, and as you can see, I have an entry called 7-zip now, and if I hover over it and click on extract here, it will uncompress that image and reveal its contents. And perfect, as you can see now, we have a new directory, and you can see the extension now is .vmware VM. So as mentioned in the previous lecture, VMware is the software that we're going to use to run different operating systems as virtual machines, and this file right here is designed to run inside VMware as a virtual machine. So in order to run it, we're going to have to go ahead and install VMware. Now again, I'm going to include the link in the resources. I have it open in here, and all you have to do is click on the download for Windows. Give it some time to download. Perfect, now the download is complete. We can view it in our downloads, or we can simply just click on it here to run it, give it permissions. And similar to installing any software on Windows, you really don't need to do much. We're simply just going to click on next, accept the agreement, next, and get it installed. The installation is complete. We're going to click on finish. And now we should be able to run this virtual machine file that we downloaded, the .vmware VM file, using VMware Workstation Player. So we're going to double click it to start it. And I'm going to minimize this. We're going to click on Open Virtual Machine in here, or you can go on the player, File, and Open. We're going to navigate to the location where we downloaded the virtual image of Kali in my downloads, and as you can see, we have it in here. Keep in mind, it's the .vmware VM file, so it ends with .vmware VM. We're going to click on it, we're going to click on Open, and inside it we have another file, the only one file that we can select. We're going to select it and click on Open. And if you get no errors, as you can see here in my case, that's it. The machine is now installed and ready to be used. Now before running it, I'm going to click on Edit Virtual Machine Settings, or right click and Settings, just to give you an idea of what the settings look like so you feel more comfortable with VMware, because modifying virtual machine settings is always the same regardless of what type of virtual machine it is. So, as you can see in this window, first of all, we can modify the amount of memory that the virtual machine has, and this machine is set to 2 gigabytes of memory by default. That is enough, but you can increase it up or down using this slider. You can also modify the amount of processors that the machine has. So as you can see, this one has 2 processors assigned to it. That is plenty, it's enough as you'll see, but you can give it more if you want to give it more. Another really important option is the network adapter, and as you can see, this is set to NAT. And this setting will basically create a virtual network where my host machine is going to be the router for this network, and then all the virtual machines are going to be are very small, and the text here on the top is very small, and that's because I have a 4K display. So, we're going to need to manually modify the display settings. And to do that, we're going to right-click, go to Settings, click on Display in here from the left, and we're going to set the scale to 200. I'm going to click on Apply. We're going to keep the changes, and perfect. Now Kali looks normal for me. You don't have to do this if Kali looks normal from the start. Only if you have a high resolution screen, you might have to do this. Now I know this operating system might look a little bit confusing and scary, but don't worry about it at all. I will teach you how to use it step by step as we go through the course. If you face any issues while installing Kali, check out the featured questions first, and if you don't see your answer, feel free to ask us in the Q&A or in the forums, and we will
respond to you within a maximum of 15 hours. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine on Apple Mac OS. Skip this lecture if you already have Kali and VMware installed, or if you want to install it on Linux. I will cover installing it on Linux in the next lecture. Anyway, I already have this downloaded in my downloads, and as you can see in here, we have the virtual image, but it is inside an archive. So you can see the file type is 7Z, and it's an archive, and we did this to compress the actual virtual image so that it takes less time to download. So in order to use this virtual image, we have to uncompress this archive. And to do that on Apple Mac OS, it's very easy. All we have to do is simply double click this file. Give it its time. This might take some time. Once done, you're gonna get a directory, as you can see in here, .vmware VM. Using the right software, we can use it to run Kali Linux inside our current operating system. To do this, we're going to need to use a virtualization software. As mentioned, virtualization software allow us to run a number of operating systems as virtual machines within our current operating system. And the virtualization software that we're going to use to run this virtual image is called VMware. So I have its download page open here already. I'm going to include it in the resources of this lecture. And don't worry about the buy now button. It's actually free for educational and non-commercial use. So we're simply going to click on download now. We're going to scroll down and we're going to download the Fusion Player. This is the free one. So we're going to click on register for a personal license. I'm going to click on create a new account. I'm going to put my first name and last name, put my email. And we're going to say, no, we're not a partner, and we're going to continue. It's going to ask us for more information. So you want to verify your email, put a password, fill company details if you have any. If you don't, you can fill blank stuff. We're going to agree to the terms. We're going to fill the CAPTCHA and register. Perfect. Now it's telling me that a verification email has been sent to my email. So I'm already logged in here to my email. We're just going to refresh it. We have a message there from them. And we can click on this link to activate my account. I'm going to input my password that I just said. We're going to continue to the Customer Connect. And perfect. We have my license in here that I can use to use the program for free. And we can also download the program from here. So I'm going to click on download and give it its time to download. And perfect, now the download is complete. So we can go back to our downloads directory and we can see VMware Fusion downloaded in here. So to install it, we're simply going to double click it, just like installing any other application. We're going to double click the installer. We're going to say yes, we want to open it, put the password. We're going to allow it to access my system events. And perfect, now it is installed and we're getting a wizard that will help us install a virtual machine for the first time. So I'm going to click on cancel to get rid of this and close this installer. We're done with everything. And if you notice here on the top right, you'll see that we have a little icon to indicate that VMware is working on this machine. So what I'm actually going to do is, if I go in here, we'll see it running. I'm going to right click and quit, because I want to show you how to actually use it from zero, from scratch. So let's assume this is a new machine and you want to use it. We're going to go to Launchpad. We have VMware in here. We're going to click on it, start it. Now you'll notice we got the same window, but when that happens, you'll see that this virtual machine file now has the icon of VMware Fusion. So now we can simply double click this file, the .vmware VM file, and you'll see that it'll automatically run inside VMware. Now we're going to say OK for this warning message. We're going to say that we copied it. And perfect, now we are ready to use this virtual machine. And as you can see, it's actually automatically starting Kali Linux for me. Now it's asking us to log in. The default username is root, R-O-O-T, and the default password is Toor, T-O-O-R. I'm gonna hit enter. And perfect, right now I am running Kali Linux as a virtual machine inside my main operating system, which is this Mac OS computer. Now to view this in full screen, you're simply going to have to click on the green button for the full screen, and it'll automatically resize, as you can see, and you'll be able to use this virtual machine, like I said, inside your main operating system. I know this might look a little bit scary, but don't worry about it. I'm going to walk you through it step by step throughout the course, and you will learn how to use it, and you'll see how easy it is to use it for hacking. For now, if you wanted to exit the full screen, you can simply just go to the top and keep the mouse there, and then click on the green button again to exit the full screen. And to turn off Kali, you can simply click here, go to power off and power off. Click on power off one more time and the machine will shut down. Now in here on the top right, you can see we have the VMware icon like I said, and if you click on it, the first time you click on it, you'll actually be asked to give it permissions. We're going to say that's okay. And let's click on it again. And as you can see, you're going to have a list of all of the virtual machines that you installed in here. But right now we only have one, which is the Kali machine. You can also click on the virtual machine library to see a list of all of the virtual machines in here laid out nicely. And if you want to edit the settings of any of these machines, we're going to click on it one click, and we're going to right click it and go to settings in here. Now, as I mentioned, this machine is already configured to run well, so you don't really need to modify any of this, but I'm just showing you how to modify the settings, because modifying the settings for virtual machines is always the same. So it's good to know. The main settings that you want to know is the processor and memory. Here you can adjust the amount of memory that you're given to the virtual machine by moving the slider, and you can adjust the amount of processors given to the virtual machine again in here. But that's both set to 2 processors and 2 GB of memory. It's enough to run Kali smoothly. If you go back to everything else, we have the network settings in here for this specific virtual machine. And as you can see, this is set to use a NAT network. This setting will basically create a virtual network where my host machine is going to be the router for this network, and then all the virtual machines are going to be clients connected to this network. So they're going to get internet connection from my host machine. And at the same time, all of my virtual machines will be connected to the same virtual network. This is very handy because my virtual machines will be able to communicate with each other, and therefore will be able to use the Kali machine to hack into the others, will be able to test network attacks, and do much more. So this setting will first allow my virtual machines to have internet connection, and it will also allow them to communicate with each other through this virtual NAT network. Now, this virtual network will rely on the connection of your host computer. So it will not need any extra interfaces. It will not need any extra adapters. And as far as the virtual machines are concerned, they are connected to an Ethernet network, but in reality, they are connected through the host machine. Again, you can click on Show All to see the rest of the settings. But like I said, you don't really need to modify anything. Everything should be configured properly for this to run with no issues at all. If you face any issues, then check out the featured questions, and if you don't find your answer, feel free to ask us and we will respond to you within a maximum of 15 hours. And like I said, don't worry about using Kali. I will cover that in details in the next lectures. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to install the customized version of Kali Linux on Apple M1 computers. If you want to install it on Windows or the normal Apple computers, then check out the previous lectures. I will cover how to install it on Linux in the next lecture, so only follow this lecture if you have an Apple M1 computer. To check if you have an M1 chip, go to the Apple About This Mac and it should say M1 in here. If you don't have an M1 chip, then follow the instructions in the previous lecture. Now, I showed you previously where to download the custom Kali image from our download page in Z-Security. If you have an M1 computer, you want to make sure that you download the M1 version, not this version. So all computers should download this version, but if you have an M1 Apple computer, then you should download it from these links in here. Once you have it downloaded, you're going to have a 7Z file similar to this one right here. It's actually a compressed archive and the image is contained inside it. We did this to reduce the download size so you can download the file quicker, but we're actually interested in the file that is inside this archive. To uncompress this archive, all you're going to have to do is simply double click the file. But I'm not going to do it now because you're going to have to first install a virtualization software that will allow you to run Kali Linux as a virtual machine. Now, usually there is a lot of free options, but because you have an Apple M1 computer, you're very limited. You only have one option, which is not free. It's paid software. It's called Parallels. Now, you can get a trial for this from this link right here, so you can download it. I will include this link in the resources of this lecture. All you have to do is simply click on download and you'll have it right here to install. You can also download it from the App Store if you want. All you have to do is just launch the App Store and look for Parallels Desktop. But I already have it downloaded in here, so to install it, I'm just gonna double click it. The installation is very, very simple. We're going to double click the installer in here and wait for a second for it to load. I'm going to put my password. Now, I've already installed the software before recording this video. Therefore, I didn't get any prompts. But if you're installing it for the first time, you're going to get a number of notifications and prompts asking you to give permissions to this program. So make sure you accept them all and allow it to access your disk and so on. Very, very simple. You just have to accept everything similar to installing any software, and then you're going to end up with a screen very similar to this one right here. Now, I'm actually going to close it because I want to show you how you would use it normally if you didn't just install it. So you can also note that you have a new icon in here in the status bar for Parallels. So I'm just going to click it and quit it as well because I just want to show you how to run it in a normal scenario if you just started your Mac. So to run it, all you have to do is simply click on all applications in here. We're going to scroll, or you can just use the search to search for it. And as you can see right here, we have Parallels Desktop. I'm going to click it and it will start the application for me. So now you can simply click on continue and start any of the ready computers that they have that you could download from their own repository. But we don't want to do that. We want to install the custom Kali. So I'm going to close this and we're going to uncompress this image that we downloaded previously. As I said, you want to make sure you download the M1 image. You can see in here, it says Kali 2021 M1, meaning it's the one for the M1 computers. So all you have to do now is double click this to uncompress it. And it might actually take some time because as you can see, the archive size in here is 2.9 gigabytes and the result image file will be over 10 gigabytes. So you want to just give it its time to uncompress the file and give you the Kali image. Perfect. Now, as you can see, we have a new file of size 13 gigabytes, and that is the virtual image of the custom Kali. Since we already installed Parallels Desktop, we can simply double-click this to run it within Parallels. Now, because I'm running the trial, I'm getting this warning in here. I'm just going to click on Continue Trial to continue, and we're going to hit Enter to start it. Now, you'll actually get 14 days trial if you download it from the website. Then, if it expires, you can actually remove it and then download it from the App Store, and you will get another 14 days. Now, to log in, the username is root, R-O-O-T, and the password is T-O-O-R. We're going to hit Enter. And perfect. As you can see, it started here for us. Now, the first time you started, you're going to see this prompt right here. This is going to install extensions to better integrate the virtual machine with your host machine. This only happens once, the first time that you run a virtual machine. So just give it some time, don't do anything. And once it's done, we're going to click on Restart to restart the computer with the changes we made. Again, we're going to log in as root, and the password is TOOR, the reverse of that. And perfect. Now we are inside Kali Linux, and it is running as a virtual machine inside our Mac computer right here. Now, don't get intimidated by the looks of this operating system. I will teach you how to use it step by step, and we'll cover it throughout the course. So using it is going to become very easy. For now, I just wanted to show you how to install it as a virtual machine inside Apple M1 computers. Now, I have it running in full screen, so it's easy for you to see. But if you want to exit the full screen, all you have to do is move the mouse all the way to the top. You'll see this drop-down menu comes up, and all you have to do is click the green button to exit the full screen. If you click it again, you'll enter full screen again. To turn off this operating system, just click on the top right icon, click on Power Off, and click on Power Off, and power off one more time. And that's it, it's off. To start it again, you're going to click on the Parallels icon on the top in here, go to the Control Center, and as you can see in here, we have Kali Linux installed as a virtual machine, so you won't need to double click this file again. So to start it, you'll just need to go to this icon, click on the Control Center, and then click the play button in here. You can also click the cog in here to enter the settings of this virtual machine to modify its settings. For example, you can modify the amount of processors and memory that this virtual machine can use. 2 processors and 2 gigs of memory are good, so I'm not going to modify that. But what I want to actually modify is the network. And instead of a shared network, I'm going to set it to use a bridge network. And I'm going to select the default adapter. I'm doing this because this setting allows the Kali machine to use the default interface that the host machine, that this computer uses to access the internet. Therefore, this way you'll be able to communicate with other computers within the network that the host computer, this Mac computer, is connected to, and try to hack them and test the attacks that we're going to learn throughout the course. See, previously I said we're going to install virtual machines within our current operating system so that we can use the Kali machine to hack into the Windows and the Linux machine, and we're going to do this all within the current operating system. That's still the case for all computers and all operating systems except for the Apple M1 computer, because currently Windows and the target Linux machine cannot run on the Apple M1 chip. So that's another limitation to the chip that is used within your computer that only the M1 Macs use. This chip is still very new, and therefore its support is very limited. That's why we can only install Kali Linux on it, and you're gonna have to test the attacks against real computers connected to the same network as the host machine, or install the target Windows and Linux machines as virtual machines, but on another computer that does not use the M1 chip, and set its network settings to bridged as well. Installing Windows and Metasploitable as virtual machines on other computers
will be covered later on in the course when you need it, so you do not need to worry about this now. Now
The Q&A or in the forums, and we will respond to you within a maximum of 15 hours.
Okay, now that we have Kali Linux installed, I want to give you a basic overview of this operating system in this lecture so that you're comfortable with it, and we're going to be using it throughout the whole course, so everything is going to become easier for you as we go through the course. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the status bar in here. So you can see we have an applications menu in here, and inside it you can see all the applications are categorized. So we have information gathering applications, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis, reverse engineering, and so on. So you can go on each one of these entries and just select any program that you want to run. And the next menu that we have is the places, which shows you the most common places in the file system. So we have home, we have the desktop, we have the documents, downloads, and so on. So you can access the places from here and then you click on home, or you can just click on the files icon in here on the left, and both of these will bring you to the home directory, which is actually the root directory. So it says home in here, but the actual location of this, if I do Control L, you'll see it is /root. So inside this, you can see we have our downloads, music, pictures, similar to the way that you'd have it in Windows and OS X. We also have the time in here, and in here on the right, we have more controls. So the first thing that we have in here is the workspaces. So Linux comes with multiple workspaces by default. Basically, what this allows us to do is we can have this desktop in here. For example, we can open the places and we can, for example, navigate to downloads and do some work in here. But if we go here to workplaces and go to the second one, you can see that I have an empty desktop that I can do whatever I want. And for example, I can launch Firefox in here. And then again, if I want to go back to the first workspace, all I have to do is click on here, click on number 1, and I'm back in here. And because I've already used up 2 spaces, the system is already creating a third empty space, so I can click on that, and as you can see, I'm in the third space where I can do more stuff. Now you can also navigate between the spaces by pressing Ctrl Alt up or down to go up and down in the spaces. The next part of the status bar is this last part in here, and if you click on it, basically the first thing it'll allow you to do is control the sound. Next, you'll see your connections. So as you can see right now, and as I showed you before, this is showing up as if we're connected to a wired network because I configured this network to use a NAT network. If you have a wireless adapter connected to this computer, you should be able to see it here. If you don't see it, then follow the link in the resources of this lecture to see how to properly connect your wireless adapter or any USB device to a virtual machine. Now I should note, you can only use external USB adapters in order to access Wi-Fi networks from Kali. You cannot use the built-in Wi-Fi card. But Kali should have internet connection anyway because it is configured to use a NAT network, and as you can see in here, it's telling me my wired is connected. So if I actually go down to Firefox, I'll close this. And if I just go to google.com, you can see it is connected to the internet. So let's go back to where we were. And if we click here, we also have the battery settings, the user settings. You have this button to turn off the machine.
this is to lock the machine, and this will show the preferences where you can modify the preferences of the machine. So you have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, change the background, change the languages, and so on. So you can spend some time getting familiar with this. It's very easy and very intuitive. Same goes to the file manager in here, very intuitive. Double click to go in. You can right click and archive and extract here to uncompress it. You can navigate throughout these files by clicking them, and then you have the trash here, which contains the deleted files. Now we also have the dock in here, which contains the favorite applications, and you can also access all the other applications by clicking on this icon right here, the show applications, and this will show you a menu with the most frequent applications, and then if you click on all, it will show you all the available applications. Okay, now that we had a quick overview of Kali Linux, I want to spend some time talking about the Linux terminal. So you can access the terminal through this application right here. So if we click on that, it will open the terminal window for us. And as you can see, all it is a black screen where you can type commands. Now, the Linux terminal is actually very, very powerful because it can be used to do anything that you can think of, really. A lot of the applications in Linux that have a graphical interface were command prompt programs first, and then people made a graphical interface for it. So a lot of the time, maybe the graphical interface will be buggy or crash, and the terminal program will still work. Also, a lot of the penetration testing tools do not even have a graphical interface. A lot of them can only be used throughout the terminal. Not only that, but in many scenarios, you might only have an SSH or a command prompt access to a machine. So you need to know how to use this command prompt in order to achieve your goals. So throughout the course, we're going to be using the terminal a lot, and that's why I want to spend some time just showing you the basics of it and making sure that you're going to be comfortable using it. Now, the basic idea is you type a command and the result will be displayed for you on screen. So let's have a look on a very, very simple command, which is pwd. Now this command prints the current working directory, hence the name pwd. So if I hit enter, you can see it's printing /root, which means right now I am in the root directory. So basically I am in here. This is the root, it's home. So if I do ls, which is a command to list all the directories and files in the current working directory, we should get all of these directories that we see in here. So if I hit enter, as you can see, I can see all these directories in the current working directory. Now, another very useful command is the cd command. This command allows us to navigate into another directory. So for example, let's say I want to navigate into the downloads. All we have to do is type cd, followed by the name of the directory that I want to navigate to. So I'm going to type downloads. Now if I hit enter, I should be inside the downloads now. So if I do pwd to see my current working directory, you'll see that it's saying I'm in root /downloads. So if I do ls here, it should show me all the directories and files inside downloads. So if I do enter, as you can see, I have a directory and a file in here. And these are the exact same files that you'll see if you double click the downloads here. Now, if you want to go back one directory, so similar to pressing the back button in here, all you have to do is do cd, again the command to change the working directory, followed by ... And now if I do pwd, you'll see I'm back in root. And if I do ls, you'll see all the directories and files in root. So that's all good. And there's actually a huge number of commands that you can use. So I'm going to include a link in the resources of this lecture of all the Linux commands that you can use. You don't need to know them by heart. We're actually going to be using a lot of them throughout the course. So you're going to naturally learn them as you go through the course. Now, if you are using a command and you're not sure about how this command works, you can just use the man command to display the manual of this command. For example, we've used the ls command here to list the files and directories in the current working directory. But if I do man followed by ls, this basically means I'm requesting the manual of ls. So I'm asking, how can I use the ls command? So if I hit enter, you'll see I'll get a screen similar to a text file. And basically it's giving me a lot of information on how to use the ls command. So you can see that it's telling us that this command will list the directory contents. You can see the way it works by typing ls followed by the options followed by a file if you want to run it on a file. You can see a longer description of the command. And then you can see all the options and the arguments that we can use with this command. Now, in Linux, most of the time, the options will always follow the same syntax. So you either use -letter or -- a word to specify the argument. For example, in here, the -a and -- will ignore entries starting with dot. So if you keep going down in here, you'll see all the options and arguments you can use with the ls command. And we have another example here. We have the -l, which means it's going to use a long listing format, which will display more information about the files in the current working directory. So let's have a look on that. I'm going to press Q to exit this, and then we're going to do ls as usual. And since we read the manual, we know we can do -l to see more information about the files. And if I hit enter now, you can see I'm still getting the same directories, but it's also showing me the permissions, the users, the date created, and so on. So you can use the man command on any command you want, not only on the ls. So you can use it on the pwd, you can use it on the cd, or any other command, and it'll show you full description or the manual page of how to use this command. Now, I'm going to clear the screen by typing clear. And the next thing that I want to show you is the --help. So this is something that you can use again in almost all commands and all programs in Linux. So you can just type the program name or the command name followed by --help. As you might think, this will show you a help message telling you what this command is or what this program is, the arguments that it takes, how to use these arguments, and examples at the bottom. Now, another useful thing with the terminal, so I'm going to clear this again, is the arrows. So you can press up to go up to see all the commands that we executed before, and again you can go down to navigate between the commands that you executed previously. You can also use the tab for autocomplete. So again, let's do ls, and you can see all the files, and let's say we want to go into documents. So we can do cd followed by documents. You can type documents, or if you're lazy like me, you can just do doc and press tab, and as you can see, it's automatically completing the rest of the word for me. So this is something that comes very, very handy when you're using the terminal for a long time. Now, what I also want to show you is how to install programs in Kali from the terminal. So first I'm going to clear this. And the first thing that you want to do is update the sources where Kali can search and download programs from. So we're going to do apt-get update. Now, apt-get is the name of the application that allows us to download and install programs. And we're saying update because I'm saying that I want you to update the list of all the programs that I can install. So I'm going to hit enter. And you want to make sure that you have internet connection when running this. And as you can see, it's telling me that it's done. And now we can go ahead and start installing applications. So the first program that I want to install is actually a terminal program, so similar to this one, but it allows us to have multiple terminal windows open in the same window. So in order to install a program through the command line, we're going to do apt-get, which is again the name of the program that allows us to install programs on the system. We're going to say that I want to install, and the program that I want to install is called Terminator. So very, very simple. First of all, we're typing the name of the command, which is apt-get. We're saying that I want to install, and the program name that I want to install is called Terminator. So I'm going to hit enter. And this is going to download and install Terminator for me. So you can use the same command to install any program that you want. You just need to replace Terminator with the name of the program that you want to install. Now I've already downloaded and installed this before, so it didn't ask me to confirm. But if you're running this for the first time, it might ask you to confirm whether or not you actually want to install this program. So all you'd have to do is press Y from the keyboard and hit enter. Now, as you can see, it's done. So if I go to my all applications in here and just type Terminator, you can see that I have it here. So I'm actually going to drag it and put it in my dock so I can access it easily in the future. So now I can just click it in here and that will open Terminator for me. Now this is another application that allows me to run commands, so it's exactly the same as this. So again, I can do ls and pwd. The only difference is with this one, I can actually right click and click on split horizontally, for example. And this will split the same screen into two screens where I can run commands at the same time. So I can have some commands in here and I can run commands in here. And then I can even split this more if I want, again, vertically or horizontally. And as you can see, I can have as many terminal windows as I want. And this will be very helpful in the future when we'll be running a number of programs and a number of commands at the same time. Now, before I let you go, I just want to show you two websites that I'm going to include in the resources of this lecture. First of all, we have a website here that includes the most common Linux commands, if not all. So you can go through them and familiarize yourself with them. But keep in mind, you don't need to know them all by heart. Like I said, as you go through my course and as you continue on with your journey, you will learn the commands that you need as you go. Another really useful resource that I'm going to include is explainshell.com. This website is designed to explain Linux commands to you. So all you have to do is type the commands in here. So for example, if you just type ls and hit explain, it'll explain that ls will list directory content. You could make it more complex and do ls-la. And if we hit enter now, it'll break all the arguments and explain every single argument. So again, ls lists contents. If we highlight the L, as you can see, it's telling us that it's going to use a long listing format as we seen earlier. And the A at the end is the same as -A, which is all, which means that we do not want to ignore entries starting with a dot. So we do not want to ignore hidden files. So you can do any command in here. You can do apt-get install, for example, and it'll actually explain it to you. So it'll explain apt is a package manager, install can be used to install packages, and so on. So if you ever see a Linux command that you don't understand, you can always just come in here, put the command, and it'll break it down to you and explain it really nicely.